Hey, what's up, guys? Silent Coyote here, and today I'm going to tell you the story about how I got this RTX 4090 for 900 bucks and why I would absolutely never do that shit again. It's a whole fucking story, so stick around for it. And for me to tell it right, I just kind of got to start at the beginning. All right, so for those of you who don't already know, in the beginning of this year, 2023, I had to RMA my RTX 3090 3 times in a 3-month period. Yeah, 3 fucking times. Now, having to deal with all these RMAs fucking sucked because I had just built my first gaming computer ever, my first computer in over a decade, my first ever gaming computer in November, and by January, my first 3090 was starting to already take a shit on me. So I never really got to enjoy the thing that much before all hell broke loose. And when I first sent in my card to Zotac, I never in a million years thought that this would happen. Overall, from the time that I sent in my first 3090 to Zotac till the time I finally got a functioning card was over 4 months. And in that 4 months, I didn't have a fucking card. And, I mean, like, how does this even happen to somebody? These cards are so expensive. Like, I paid $900 for my 3090. $900 fucking dollars. And I got 3 bad cards in a row. What? Ultimately, all these RMAs did kind of work out because now I have a 4090, but to tell this story right, I got to go back to fall of 2022 when I first decided I was going to build myself a gaming computer. September 2022. For months now, I just could not find a decently priced graphics card anywhere. The market was still all over the place due to the crypto boom, alongside with the chip shortage that COVID caused, and I wasn't about to spend 2 or 3 times MSRP to get myself a card. It just wasn't going to happen. I wasn't willing to spend that much. People were spending thousands on 3090s, and just a little too much for me. So my new hobby became stalking the GPU market, the tech market, used tech, new Newegg, freaking Micro Center, Amazon, freaking every store, any store, Best Buy, whatever, anything. I was just looking for a decently priced graphics card. Kids, this is why the adults and the parents in your lives tell you not to do drugs. If you do drugs, you'll be like me. You'll talk like me. Anyway. So yeah, stalking. I got real big into stalking. Pretty much I'd spend all day comparing prices. Not all day. I mean, I had a life, but spend a large amount of my day. And if you followed my videos at that time, you'd know because I was just making like GPU price videos. I could probably tell you the price of any card at that point. But hey, I'm not here to brag. I know that's a sweet skill to have. And like around this time, you really couldn't get an RTX 3090 for anything less than like $1,300 new. And honestly, it isn't even the card I really had my sights on. I was looking more at like an RTX 3070 or a 3080 because I couldn't really rationalize spending over $1,000 on a GPU. And the 3080 was going typically less than $1,000, and it suit my needs pretty well. So that's what I was looking for. Well, I never got the 3080. Now, I mentioned earlier that this PC that I planned on building was going to be my first ever gaming PC build. But it wasn't my first ever PC build. I'd built many computers before. But this one was going to be the first one I'd ever built with the intention of being a gaming machine as well as a content creation machine. It also wasn't my first ever gaming computer with like an NVIDIA graphics card. I had one of those in the past, and at the time of looking and trying to buy this thing, I was gaming on an Asus ROG gaming laptop with like a 3050 Ti in it. I still use that laptop today. I think it's a 3050 Ti. And I knew I needed something much more powerful to get the performance that I really wanted. The laptop was holding me over, and it's a great graphics card and has like a Ryzen 7 3700 or 3800 or 4800. That's it. The laptop one's 4800H in it. So it's like a decent computer, but I wanted to build something sweet that I could do anything on. You know what I mean? So after literal months of stalking the silicon, I like that. Stalking the silicon, I came across An RTX 3090, a Zotac Trinity RTX 3090 on Newegg for just $870, which at the time was an absolute steal. It was the lowest that card had ever been, and as far as I know, it has never gone that low again in the new market. And I just happened to buy it during like one of those spikes down, and I was fucking happy. I mean, just look at me.
Look at it. Look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my. Yeah.
Dingus, come here.
Oh shit.
Come here.
I finally got my GPU.
And I was finally able to put my build together. Finally. Kick it on. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. And for a little while there, everything was perfect. I got my build finished. It looked great. So you can only imagine how utterly disappointed I was when the shit hit the fan. So I put the computer together. Everything was running fine until, well, all of a sudden, it wasn't. My computer screen started going black and my GPU fans would ramp up to 100%. I wouldn't be able to shut my computer off unless I held down the power button for like 5 seconds. This would happen at just random times, usually when I was using the card heavily, like if I was benchmarking it or gaming, but it was kind of sporadic at first until it started happening literally every time I'd run a game or any time I'd run a benchmark. And I wasn't sure what the problem was at first. Was it my power supply? Was it a weird issue with my motherboard, or processor, or RAM? Or was it my graphics card? It seemed like it was my graphics card, but I really didn't want to admit that it was the graphics card, please. But it was kind of looking like it was the graphics card. On top of this, one of the fans on the GPU is making a terrible buzzing sound at certain RPMs. And normally this isn't something that would really bother me, but with that happening and now the computer shutting down, I just had a feeling that it might be the graphics card. So I was able to pick up an old GTX 1080 Ti from a friend, and I threw it in the system, and what do you know? It works fine without it. Which, yes, that could still leave the power supply on the table as if the power supply wasn't powering the 3090, but it could power the 1080 Ti. But I just had a feeling. I had a 1,000-watt power supply, like it's Corsair RM1000E. Good, well-known, decent, gold-rated power supply. What really sealed the deal for me is when I bought that GTX 1080 Ti for my friend, I also bought an old gaming computer from him that he had sitting around. So I threw the 3090 in that, and the same exact thing happened. There was a different power supply, different processor, different RAM, different motherboard, different everything. Same problem. Fuck. So at this point, I knew I was pretty much fucked, and I had to file an RMA with Zotac, and I just went to their website, and I wrote them a little letter, and it was something like this. Hello, I bought the Zotac Trinity OC RTX 3090 in October, and I absolutely loved it. At first, everything ran well and it performed as expected. Then, all of a sudden, the GPU began to crash every time I was gaming, working on videos, or anything that used the GPU. Nothing changed. My PC didn't even move from the spot at that time. No new downloads, nothing. I'll be in the middle of working, the screen goes completely black, while everything else stays on. I have no choice but to hard reset the PC. At first, I wasn't sure what the issue was, but after testing this card in 2 different PCs, with both of them having the same issue immediately, it is obviously the GPU. I even tried using different drivers, but it didn't help. Even if I roll back to the latest driver I had success with, it still crashes on all the PCs I put it into. It's really a shame because I really love this card, and always speak very highly about Zotac products to my viewers. I'm hoping that this is just a fluke, as I know sometimes GPUs just have problems in manufacturing and it's hard to control that. I want my positive image of a Zotac to continue, so please let me know how we can get this card into you for fixing. I trust that you will take care of it. Please email me or call me as soon as possible, as I need to get this card RMA'd ASAP so I can continue my editing work. I'm free anytime, any day from 12 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to speaking with you. And, yeah. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit worried to send something so expensive through the mail. So, for my first RMA here, Zotac did not cover the charges, like what it cost for me to ship the card, and I paid for insurance for it. It ended up costing about $100 to ship it to them. That's not overnight delivery, but that is with insurance. But I felt like that was worth it, and if anything did happen, I would have been reimbursed up to $1,500, so I would be able to get myself a new card. But another thing that really worried me were the horror stories that I found on Reddit about the Zotac RMA process. I heard a lot of things about people sending in cards and getting one back that was even in worse condition than the one they sent out, or just them having a hard time staying in contact or getting notifications about where their card or their product was in the RMA process. But I went ahead and I shipped it out, and I just crossed my fucking fingers, you know? And honestly, I didn't really have too bad of an experience. There was one employee who I'll refer to as G for the duration of this video, who was honestly the main person I spoke to whenever I would call or I'd send an email. He was just on top of it, or he was just one of the only people who worked in the RMA department and actually dealt with people. I can't tell. I know that Zotac isn't a company that is based out of America, and I was mainly talking and calling the North American office, so it might be a smaller office, but G was always there for me during my first RMA all the way till the last one. But most importantly, during this first RMA, I sent the card out. I probably sent an email every 5 days or so to check up. I always got an email in return, and from the day I shipped it out to the day I got it back was about 3 weeks, honestly, which is very short compared to what I'd read online about the RMA process for pretty much any other GPU manufacturer. Now, what Zotac ultimately ended up doing was sending me out a different 3090, but not a new 3090, which was a little bit upsetting. Once I unboxed it, I realized that this card was almost new, but it was missing a couple things, such as the SLI slot cover, which is important because the SLI slot is on the outside of the graphics card, the part of that you would see when looking into the computer, and they're like copper pins, and the cover would cover up those pins so you wouldn't see them, and I wasn't going to be running two 3090s in my system, so I didn't plan on doing SLI. So I immediately went and sent an email over to G, and I explained what was going on, and he said, no problem, they'll send me out a new SLI cover. But that was before I even unboxed the card. And things didn't go as smoothly as I would have hoped. Luckily, I decided to make an unboxing video of this entire thing, so when I put the thing in my computer, the graphics card in my computer, this happened. Oh. Ooh. That's terrifying. It goes away when I turn it up. And as you can imagine, at this point, I was pretty fucking heartbroken. Like, really, I was so upset. This card was making a terrible grinding sound, ungodly grinding sound, which, the first one I could have said, that was coil whine, but this was worse than any coil whine I'd ever heard before. But on top of it, the card was also underperforming. It was performing more like a 3080 Ti than a 3090, which I know isn't a huge difference, but I would have just bought a 3080 Ti if I wanted a 3080 Ti. Like, it just wasn't performing right. So far, my first gaming build was just not working out. Since I bought all the parts, I only really got to play with the thing for a couple weeks before all this shit started happening. But I had to fucking contact them again, send out another email. I ended up calling and speaking to G personally on the phone, and they told me to send it in and that this time they'll pay for it. Okay, I guess. So again, I typed out a real long letter describing everything that I was dealing with, exactly how I was dealing with it, packaged it up, they paid for it this time, and I shipped the thing out. I will be linking all of those letters down below in the description. Might not be right away, but I'll do it. So now we're just playing the waiting game again, and the waiting I did. This RMA was not as quick as the first one, and a few times I had to reach out and ask, well, what's going on with my card, guys? Sometimes waiting several days for a response. Every time I called, I got G for the most part, except for like an entire week when G wasn't there, and that time I really didn't hear from anybody at all. But I didn't want to keep calling him up on the phone, so I just sent out emails, and this entire process took about 4 weeks from the time I shipped out the card. Maybe at 4.5, which really still isn't terrible, but the communication just wasn't as great as the first time. But at last, my new card did come, and it was a new card this time. It had the plastic wrap on it and all the little SLI, PCIe, and HDMI slot cover thingies. It was brand new. this one's gonna work, right? Right? It was just like the first card. Exactly like the first card. As soon as I would be gaming and like streaming at the same time, anything that got the card hot, the thing would just turn off. And my computer would stay on. My motherboard would be lit up. My lights would be lit up. Everything else would be lit up. My fans would actually ramp up to like 100. And I would have absolutely no way to turn it off except for to hold down my power button just like before. So as you can imagine at this point, I'm pretty pissed off. I'm not mad at anybody over at Zotac in particular. Like, the RMA department had been very helpful. The people I've spoken to have like been sympathetic and have felt for me, and I felt pretty taken care of up until this point, but I'm upset. And honestly, I didn't want another 3090. I didn't want them to send me out another card and for them to get my hopes up and for it to not work out again. So I called them up immediately and I said I wanted a refund, but they told me that they couldn't really offer me a refund because I bought it through Newegg, through their store on Newegg. But that once I sent the card back in, they would call me and we would discuss my options, whatever that meant. I also sent them out another email at this point explaining everything that had happened and pretty much explaining that I didn't want another 3090 and that for me to get any other card would require me to upgrade my case because they didn't make the 3090 Ti in a Trinity that would have fit in my chassis at the time. And for me to buy a whole new case, to have to rebuild my computer and everything, I straight out asked them if you could upgrade me to a better card, you know, like something like a 4080 or a 4090. And I explained to them that like I bought the 3090 because it had 24 gigs of VRAM and that a 4090 would be pretty cool. And I sent my card out with the letter inside of it and I just waited. And then I got this email. Silent Coyote, I remember you said an upgrade to a 4090 would be worth considering. We would like to offer you a ZT-D 4090 0B-10P for all of your trouble. Please let us know if this is acceptable. We would also like to thank you for all of your patience and understanding through the process. Please let us know if you need anything else. G. All right, so honestly, I'm happy with that. Not only are they sending me out like a 4090, just like the Trinity, like the 3090 model I bought, but they're upgrading me to a 4090 Amp Aero Extreme. It's a really, really, really big card, really beautiful card though. And after everything I went through, all the time I didn't have my card, the money I had to spend to send the card out the first time, the fact that I had to buy another graphics card during this period, 2 other graphics cards. I actually bought an RX 580 and then I bought myself an RX 6950 XT because I didn't have a card because of everything that was happening. I wish that the first 3090 would have just worked and none of this would have happened and I would have been very happy. But now I have to upgrade my case to fit a 4090. That's more money out of pocket for me, more time. And overall, it helps me justify, in my mind, all the bullshit I had to go through up until this point. So, I'm happy with it, I guess. The upgrade is a huge upgrade, you know what I mean? And a huge price difference. So, I appreciate it. And I got the card. And I haven't had any problems with it since, which leads me to believe that it wasn't a Zotac problem, but it was that model of 3090 problem. This entire situation was a huge pain in my ass, but they helped make it better. They were sympathetic about everything that happened. They were there, they answered my questions, and now I have a working card, a better card, and I feel okay about it. And I think that's the most important part of customer service, you know what I mean? Just making the customer walk away from the experience feeling happy or at least content with what happened. And that's what happened. The only real problems that I had were when I got the second card back and it didn't have the SLI cover on it, but they took care of that very quickly. Like, I got that cover in the mail in a couple of days. And then just like the spots of communication where like I would go 3 or 4 days without hearing back from somebody, sometimes closer to a week. But you kind of expect that from any big company like this, and it is what it is. So that's the story of how I got my my RTX 4090 for $900 and why I absolutely would never fucking do that shit again. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing a deep dive of the RTX 4090 and my review on it if you subscribe to my channel. You really, really should. Do it. hit that fucking subscribe button. You'll get all your tech with a lisp needs as well as unfiltered shit talking. That's right. We got that here, folks. Have a good one.